Okay, Sisters fans. Now, this is a video that I kind of think I should have waited until maybe like the mid-season finale to do it, but maybe 4 episodes is enough, supposedly. But I really wanted to wait until we got into season 7 to kind of see the dynamics of the girls' relationships. Specifically, Karen is off the table because she's single. I mean, regardless as to whether or not you still think she feels some kind of way about Zach, she's single. She's been focusing on her baby and salon. Fatima, I'm not really going to talk about her and Zach's relationship in this video because the title speaks for itself. I don't know what the title is yet. Maybe it'll be something like, who's the best boyfriend of the trio, or which sister has the best relationship, however you want to call it. But yeah, we're talking about Jordan, Rich, and Tony and their relationships with Andy, Sabrina, and Danny respectively. Out of these three, which one do you think has the best relationship? Now, to be fair, I don't really think enough time has passed for us to truly see which one is all that great. I know, and the reason I'm doing this video because a lot of people each week still say, man, ever since these guys appeared last season, I've never really cared for their characters. Or, kind of at the detriment to the character, Jordan was recast, and, a lot of people are like, oh, the chemistry really isn't there. Even though the first Jordan was only in a couple episodes, it felt like he and Andy had a little bit more of a connection than the new Jordan and Andy now. And regardless as how you feel about that, if it's true or not in terms of a statement, it's kind of like the Aunt Viv situation. Like, the first Aunt Viv for like the first half of the Fresh Prince versus the new Aunt Viv for the back half. The character name is the same, but the character themselves is just kind of not the same. So it seems that based on, upcoming episode trailers and episode synopsis, I think there's going to be trouble in paradise for pretty much every single couple. With Rich and Sabrina, it's the friction of Rich not wanting kids or basically being a family man versus Sabrina, who feels like, hey, that's what I was put here for. I want to be a mother. I want to be a wife and everything. And she's going to freeze her eggs. Or at least she says to Rich, I'm going to freeze my eggs. And he's kind of looking down with a, oh, geez, kind of look on his face. And then when it comes to Tony and Danny, you could say the therapy suggestion is friction, but I think that the trailer showing that, the whole thing between Danny and Tony will be his kids and especially the ex-wife. If that's too much for her to handle. Then when it comes to Andy and Jordan, I'm going to be completely honest here. Even though I want to say like, well, he's going into a political career. Will some, skeletons come out of Jordan's closet? Isn't it? Didn't I do an episode synopsis breakdown of like something from Jordan's past comes up that could possibly ruin his future with Andy? But when you really think about it, Andy's relationship with Jordan is kind of overshadowed by the looming threat and past actions with Gary. So it really is difficult to gauge their relationship. I mean, in episode 1, it seemed like everything is all hunky-dory and she's happier now than she was with Gary. And she even says during the brunch that Jordan has her addicted to sex. But I don't know. Aside from that, I mean, they seem to be happy, but it just makes you wonder, especially with the whole Penelope and Andy revelation of them seemingly working together behind the scenes against Gary. Everything about the whole rectangle, if you will, or square of Gary, Penelope, Jordan, and Andy, it seems like it's a scheme going on as opposed to actual relationships. So if I were to rank them in terms of which relationship, and I mean, I'm going to say relationship because they've been dating apparently for 3 months now, and they all seem to be, doing well in their own personal relationships. If I were to rank them from, let's say, quote unquote, worse, I use the term worse loosely because really, we don't know all that much about the relationship dynamics yet. We've gotten some insight, but I don't know how I would say, which one is arguably the best, because they all seem to have chinks in their armor that haven't been revealed yet, but they will be coming soon. Like I said, with the Andy situation, I feel like there was always shaky foundation because I don't believe Andy has ever come forward and admitted that, hey, actually, even though it's true, Gary and I had a relationship going on while he was with Penelope, but I actually got with him knowing he was a married man. And I still just look at that with the side eye towards Andy, because I feel like if that came forward, that probably would have jeopardized any chance of her and Jordan, even beginning a relationship to begin with. But they seem happy. They actually support each other's careers. They're there for each other when they need it. But like I said, something just doesn't smell right. So I would put the Andy and Jordan relationship at the bottom of the totem pole here. Next up, let's see. I would put... Dang, this is a tough call between Sabrina and Danny's relationships, because it almost feels like, you know what, I'm going to slot in Danny and Tony. Because to be honest, kind of like with the Andy and Jordan thing, I really am questioning the beginning stages of their relationship, if you will. For one, Tony, Tony. I thought I had the wrong name here. Tony knew that Danny was in a relationship to begin with. Basically, she was seeing / in a relationship with Preston, yet he still pursued her. And then from there, but the thing is, I am trying to rank these relationships from the present, during that 3-month time skip to what we know in season 7. So you could argue that, well, Jeremy, I don't think if you should consider how they got together in the first place. I kind of think we do, because when you really think about it, you could argue that, and I'm not saying Danny doesn't like Tony. I'm not saying that she doesn't like Tony, but it makes you wonder, is the only reason she jumped into a relationship with Tony due to the fact that Preston left and then got married? So it was kind of a knee-jerk reaction. And if you look at episode 2, when Sabrina was telling Danny about therapy and the fact that, yeah, you said you've been happy with Tony, but the nightmares and whatnot, do you think it could be Preston related? And it just makes you think, like, maybe she just doesn't want to be alone, so Tony was just kind of there, so they got together. It's plausible, but okay, if you put aside how they got started and you look at their current dating situation and working relationship, I'd say Tony is definitely, even though he gave off a lot of red flags at the beginning, I think he has shown a lot of green flags this season, particularly when he called Sabrina about Danny's nightmares. Even though he knew he and Danny were going to have a fun night together, he opted to say, you know what, I think she needs to talk with her girlfriends about this, so I'm going to bounce, let them have their conversation. Because he sees that there's a problem. He's not backing down from Danny's deflection. And it's like, look, I think you need to talk with somebody. So and he's applauding her every step of the way of her therapy journey. So I will say, despite the beginning of their relationship being very questionable, I will give credit to Tony for wanting the best for Danny and wanting her to get better. So I will give him props for that. But like I said, the whole thing with his kids and ex-wife, that might cause the situation later on. But then I guess you could say tentatively in first place is Sabrina and Rich. but that might not last too long based on the next episode. I'm still questioning, like, look, 3 months into your relationship, you've been dating and seeing each other a lot, yet the whole thing about the kids is really causing an issue now. It just seems like that's something you would talk about well into the first few days. I mean, remember, Rich and Tony said when they met Sabrina and Danny at the restaurant during the blind date between Jordan and Andy that, yeah, you know, we were both married at some point, but then we both got divorces. Same with Jordan. And we never want to be in the marriage club again. So they kind of knew up front, like, oh, these guys don't want to get married at any point. So with that being, you know, the icebreaker conversation, you would think that the whole motherhood thing from Sabrina, it kind of felt like it came out of nowhere. Oh, I want to be a mom. I want to be a mom. It's like, if you watch Supergirl on the CW, Alex is a character that became her whole character, like in the later seasons of the show. I want to be a mom. But I think that when it comes down to it, it's just really weird because, yeah, you're 3 months into a relationship, yet the whole thing about kids now all of a sudden is, wait, you don't want to have kids? Wait, you want to have kids? Yeah. If you watch House of Pain, what was it, season 12? That was the last season we just had. Laura, her parents finally meeting Calvin. It's like they've been engaged for Lord knows how long, and you're just now meeting Calvin. Then Laura out of nowhere saying, you know what, I don't even know if I want kids because there's things I want to do in my career. There are plenty of things I'm like, you would think these elements of your dreams of the future or what you wanted the future to look like, you would think these would be conversation points early. Maybe it's because I've been single since like 10th grade. So I have no idea what the dating market is like, so to speak. I've been on a couple dates when I was in college and when I was in Lynchburg, but nothing ever really came from them except from friendships. I mean, I'd say that darn near any girl I dated, which never turned into a relationship. I mean, maybe, you know, I think the girl I went out with the most, we went on like 3 dates, but it never turned into a relationship. Every other girl I talked to and all, like, for the most part, I think I'm still cool with most of them. I'm barely online like that on social media outside of my work, but I think most of them have gotten married. But on first dates, you know, especially in college, it was like job interviews. It's like, so where do you see yourself in the next few years? What are your career goals? Like, where do you plan on living, close to your hometown or somewhere else, or still in Lynchburg? And family stuff, even though that isn't always a first date kind of conversation, I would think it would come up earlier in the 3-month period than when Sabrina comes back from a brunch drunk as a skunk. That wasn't meant to rhyme, but it did. So I think that Tony is bringing out a more adventurous, aggressive side of Sabrina that we never really saw with Bio or Calvin, at least. But I think that on both sides, they really do like each other a lot, as opposed to, you know, is the Andy thing just to make Gary jealous? Is Danny only with Tony because the knee-jerk reaction of Preston moving on? But with Sabrina and Rich, I honestly feel like they just really do like each other. And I kind of saw the sparks from when they first met, like when they were walking on the street. I kind of saw that. So personally, I think these two have the best relationship, but at the same time, them not discussing the kids thing, I don't know. I really think it boils down to Rich's reaction to Sabrina freezing her eggs. Because to him, it might be like a woman who doesn't want to sign a prenup. Oh, you want me to sign a prenup? Then that's basically you saying that the marriage is going to fail. No, it's just a precaution. Just like with Sabrina. The eggs, I mean, neither her nor Rich know where they're going to be within the next 3 years if they're going to be together. So this is a precaution. So if he has a problem with it, well, that's probably just a red flag. So what do you think? Do you think do you agree with my rankings of the relationships? Tony and Sabrina, Danny and Tony. Oh, I'm sorry. Rich and Sabrina, Tony and Danny, Jordan and Andy? Or do you just say, screw it, Jeremy, I don't like any of these couples, to bring back the original guys? Nah, but for real, I think that it was a huge shift in season 6B when these guys just came out of nowhere and replaced the previous guys, Gary, Calvin, and Preston. It really would have helped if, kind of like on Girlfriends or Living Single, or heck, even some of the Disney Channel shows, that the ladies or sisters kind of rotated the men they dated, as opposed to staying with the same men. Even if they weren't in relationships, they just stayed in these toxic cycles where they would use the men, or they would sleep with someone else randomly, but then go back to the guy they have on the sidelines. So it really would have made the change a bit more natural. But at the same time, you know, I am intrigued to see where things are going to go. Do you think these relationships may fall apart before the season even comes to a close? Heck, maybe before we even get to the halfway point. Maybe Sabrina realizes that freezing her eggs, you know, Rich's response to it could be a big sign, like, you know what, I don't think he's the one. Or, and I didn't mention this, but the whole thing about her reaction to Calvin leaving without saying goodbye, yeah, she kind of felt some kind of way about it, but I highly doubt these two would have gotten together in the long run. Then with Danny, the whole ex-wife and kids might be a bit too much, and maybe therapy will make her realize that she doesn't really like Tony as much as she thinks she does. She's just having a quote-unquote good time because it's a distraction from Preston. And then with the Jordan Andy thing, look, there's the whole theory because of that one article that Jordan and Penelope were ex-spouses as opposed to being siblings, and it's just a whole lot of craziness going with that. It's just, I don't think that relationship's going to last long at all. So with that being said, let me know your thoughts in the comment section below, and I'll catch you in the next video.